They wanted to be more accurate, because one of the things that happened early on is that because of this wide range, people would shave down the side of the coin, and you would keep a little silver. So in other words, if you were the merchant, kind of a dishonest merchant, you'd scrape the coin and make sure your customer always got the minimum weight back, and you'd pile up your own silver, you'd take it to the mint, get new coins minted, and all of a sudden you got an extra dollar or two that really wasn't supposed to be yours, but that's what they did. And that's the other reason why reeded edges became put on the coin, because you couldn't shave the coin any longer. So technically, the dollar unit was determined by historical fact of a unit of measure, by measurement, rather than by the edict here that was stated in the report. Okay, I know this is a little bit hard to read, but this is the actual original 1792 Coinage Act. And this little section here says dollar or units, each to be of the value of a Spanish mill dollar as the same is now current, and to contain 371 grains and 4/16 parts of a grain of pure, or 416 grains of standard silver. Standard silver is about 88–89% pure silver, and if you take that ratio out, you will come back with 371 and a quarter grains of silver. But they then defined, for a record, this was the first Coinage Act, and they talk about that dollar unit, and they treated the dollar as a unit. Why? Because it was a unit of measure. Just like we said at the very beginning, a dollar is a unit of measure. It's a unit of measure of money, like an hour is a unit of measure of time. So once people begin to understand that, you will then see why the current banking system is so dishonest and so wrong. The U.S. monetary laws that exist today. In Title 31, Section 5112A, defines all our coinage. A1 defines something called a dollar. Now, a dollar doesn't equal $1. Go figure. A dollar is a coin of a certain diameter, and it happens to be the same diameter as the Sacagawea coin. You all know what the Sacagawea kind of golden dollar, I think they call it. Not the gold, but the golden dollar. That coin is considered a dollar. Although I do have a complaint into the Secretary of Treasury right now because he's minting them with $1 printed on it, where the law on 5112 E defines $1 as the silver coin. So the law that exists today has gold coins and a silver coin. Congress regulated the value at about 50-1. So 1 ounce of gold has been regulated to equal 50 ounces of silver. It's really, I should say 50 ounces of silver based on the market conditions buys 1 ounce of gold. So most people aren't aware of that. I have some coins here afterwards. If you're interested, I can show you these coins. I have every one, the $50, the $25, the $10, $5, and $1 coins, so you can see them. They exist. You can get them today. You're supposed to be able to retrieve them from the Federal Reserve Bank, but they won't obey the law. And when you go to the Department of Treasury in Washington, D.C., they then send you to the Mint. The Mint says that they're not allowed to give them to the public, so they send you to a national dealer, and next thing you know, you're in this vicious circle. But hopefully when the American people wake up and start making the proper demands, we the people can demand our country back through a monetary reform. So the question I have is, does the constitutional dollar exist today? And that answer is yes. And how do we know that? In Title 31, Section 5116, it states, the Secretary shall still silver under the conditions the Secretary considers appropriate for at least 1.2929292929 a fine troy ounce. Now you think to yourself, what in the world? Where did this number 1.29292929 come from? Well, it's interesting because it's a mathematical number. And that mathematical number derives itself from 1 troy ounce equals 480 grains. And 480 grains divided by 371 and 4/16 grains equals 1.29292929. Isn't that interesting? So the Congress knows, the Treasury knows, but we the people don't know that the dollar standard is still in the law today. What's even more interesting, and I don't have it in this presentation, but if you go to look at Title 31, Section 5117, it talks about to ensure that the equal purchasing power is maintained, which is in Title 31, Section 5119. The Secretary of Treasury has to sell gold, raw gold, at $42 2/9 per troy ounce. Well, 1 troy ounce of gold today, I think, was like $1,890. He's a half an order of magnitude or more away from where he should be. So, the law that exists today, that's on the books today, requires and knows that the dollar standard is still here and still a constitutional standard. The report that was delivered to Congress by Donald Reagan, the Secretary of Treasury, in March '82, says it is significant that this power of coining money is mentioned in the same sentence in the Constitution as the powers to fix weights, the fixed standards of weights and measures. For the framers regarded money as a weight of metal and a measure of value. Now, Roger Sherman, most of you may or may not know, but he is the only founding father that signed all the founding documents. He's the only man that signed the Declaration of Independence, signed the Northwest Ordinance, signed the Articles of Confederation, and signed the Constitution. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with some of those documents, both by Congress and by the Supreme Court, are defined as the organic law of this country. So all the fundamental law of this country goes back to those 4 documents. And Roger Sherman from Connecticut put that in. The other thing that's interesting is originally in this Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1, if you go to the National Archives, and how many have ever been to the National Archives and seen like the Declaration of Independence? Have any of you ever gone around to the other side of the building where the research side is? Next time you go to Washington, D.C., go around to the other side of the building and ask for a research or temporary research card. And go in and you can go up to the 2nd floor and you can look at some other historical documents, such as the original draft of the Constitution. And the original draft of the Constitution is good to view because when you view it in light of Madison's notes, you'll see that this big argument came up about the ability to still admit bills of credit. Roger Sherman was one of the people who said, I will completely pull out of this whole Constitutional Convention, and Connecticut will not be part of it if Congress is ever allowed to admit bills of credit again. And part of his quote was, if what is used as a medium of exchange is fluctuating in its value, it's no better than unjust weights and measures which are condemned by the laws of God and man. And sure enough, the Bible talks about this. In Deuteronomy 25:13-15, thou shalt not have in thy bags diverse weights, a great and a small. Thou shalt not have in thy house diverse measures, a great and a small. But thou shalt have perfect and just weight, a perfect and just measure shalt thou have, that the days may be lengthened in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Now the land that the Lord gave us, this nation had been so blessed. We have been. And we can be again if we turn ourselves around. I often think of Nineveh. Okay? If we repent and we turn ourselves around, we will be restored. But if we don't, we will be destroyed. And then in Proverbs, we read, diverse weights and diverse measures, both of them are like an abomination to the Lord. So what does this mean? Calling a green $1 note $1 and a silver coin $1 when they are diverse weights, i.e. they don't buy the same thing. If it takes 39 of the green notes to get $1, then that green note is obviously not $1. We ourselves have to get into the mindset that these are not dollars. I like the term bucks. Okay? Call it 30 bucks. Don't call it $1 anymore. Change your lingo. Simply because it's not $1. Unjust weights and measures are condemned by the laws of God and man. In Title 31, Section 5119, it says the Secretary shall maintain the equal purchasing power of each kind of United States currency. As I just showed you before in 5112's A7, 8, 9, and 10 define a 50, 25, 10, and $5 coin made of gold. And Section E define the $1 coin. Those coins have been declared lawful money, legal tender, and currency of the United States. The Federal Reserve note, by the way, in Title 31, Section 5103, has been parenthetically made a legal tender. And I say parenthetically because if you read the law, it says United States coins and currency, parentheses, including Federal Reserve notes, close parentheses, shall be legal tender for all public debts, private transactions, yada, yada, yada. Okay? And we're going to look at that in just a second, too. But the bottom line is we don't have a Secretary of Treasury who is maintaining the equal purchasing power. If he was maintaining the equal purchasing power, we could not be in the debt we're in today. It would be physically impossible. And to make matters worse, I know Mike showed a picture of all these bills being printed. The reality is those bills don't exist. The reality is there is some people who understand the law, and they've ensured that there will be enough bills, or there is enough gold or silver to cover those bills. But there isn't enough gold and silver to cover all the electronic money that's been created. So if you look at the law requires that Federal Reserve notes shall be redeemable for lawful money on demand. Your bank account only has electrons in it. You're not entitled to any lawful money unless you hold those notes. We, the group of us at the Bill of Rights Foundation, have been doing FOIA requests for several years to try to ascertain how many notes have really been printed. And it's somewhere around 42 billion. So that means of all the rest of the trillions, that's just been created by a computer entry and has no merchantable collection value to anybody. It's a facade. The Federal Reserve System, let's take a look at it. It was created in 1913 under the Owens-Glass Act. It consists of 12 private banks. G. Edward Griffin, a good acquaintance of mine, I won't say he's a good friend because we're good acquaintances. I love his quote. He said, "The Federal Reserve is no more federal than Federal Express." And that is a way to think about it. The Federal Reserve are 12 private banks, and until recently, what's it been, within the last 60 days, until recently, they had never been audited. Now, if you want to get your blood boiling, you can read that report. And that report was put out by a Democrat. He posted it. He's so furious, believe it or not. And that report shows that within the last 2 years, besides all this other bailout monies and other stuff we gave, Ben Bernanke and his buddies created another 16 trillion off books.